Today I'm joined by Commissioner Věra Jourová, who is Commissioner for Justice, Consumers and Gender Equality. We are on the eve, Commissioner, of International Women's Day. Gender parity and gender equality might seem for some as a mirage still. Is the situation improving in Europe, or are we still at a standstill?
The situation is stagnating, and it's not easy to say for me, because I would like to see better progress in several aspects. And maybe one of the things we could improve would be not to speak about the gender equality only on the 8th of March. I think it should be a continuous topic which will be discussed on many different levels in all the member states. So the situation is not improving too much, but I think that we will achieve results in the course of years, especially in those areas where we adopted the legislation.
When you say the situation is improving, can you point to some actions that the EU has initiated that are bringing tangible results?
First of all, we came with the legislation, or the package comprising of the rules and non-legislative measures to improve the situation of working parents, mothers, fathers, families, because we see that one of the barriers for the women to be able to combine or to do their career, to make more money, is that they have to big burden only themselves in caring for the families. And we want to open more space for the families, for the working parents, for the women to decide. Also, we want the results in the sense of more and better jobs for women. This is gradually improving, but we see the need for better development. We want better conditions also in relation to availability and affordability of the social services. So what I recommend now, the member states use also the EU money for services like kindergartens and creches, or the social facilities for the handicapped members of the families. I think that here we do a lot, and it was high time that somebody cares about the working parents and carers.
Yeah, you're pointing to a very big problem with the aging population, and the women. We should try to avoid that the burden falls on women. And you mentioned parental leave and probably elderly care. And
paternity leave as well. Right. On your question, what we want to improve? Better paid and more good jobs for women. Smaller or decreased pay gap, because still we have 16% of difference between the salaries of men and women. We don't know why. Why should we have such a difference? We have to address the root causes of it. Desperately, we need to decrease the figures showing violence against women. Here I want to invest a lot of time in promoting the legislation and also campaigning against these horrible things. And we want to get the women to more managerial positions, be it in private sector, but also public sector and politics, because to have more women in decision-making positions will make our world better. I am absolutely convinced about that.
I'm convinced about that as well. Let me get back to one of the points that you raised. It's the equal pay. You mentioned a 16% gap. When it comes to pension, for example, is even higher, to 39%. And with an aging population, I'm going back to that, it's timely that there is a certain realization about the problem, and that something is done at a member state level. What can the Commission do to accelerate this kind of awareness?
It's shameful. it's shameful. This 39% of gap. Well, this is the factor which causes which creates the women's poverty. And it is a very serious phenomenon. What can the Commission do? First of all, we need to eliminate the pay gap over the life of the women and men. I said to you that I don't see any reason why the women should have lower salaries. And then the result will be that also the pension gap will be lower, if at all. Some gap in the pension. So this requires a systemic approach towards all the periods of the life of a person. And I have to say, and it's none of alibism, that majority of the tasks here are on the member states level, because they are the masters of the social and tax systems, where I see the biggest problems.
But also women may be fighting much more. Is that we need to go on the street again and fight for our rights?
If no other measures work, this is the last resort. Right. I will be there as well, but I believe in other ways of achieving the goals.
Now, I want to touch, you are from the Czech Republic, so you come from the new member states. Male chauvinism is a big problem in that part of Europe, much more than in Western Europe. Is that a perception or a reality?
I think, unfortunately, it's a reality, not only in my country, but in the other Eastern countries. But not to speak only about the East, we see the statistics that there is similar situation when we compare the Northwest countries and Southeast. And there are many factors which cause that the role of a woman is still lower or lower perceived than the role of the man. And we see that also our measures and all the proposals for solutions are not so easy to sell and to promote, especially in the Eastern countries. So, yeah, I try hard to convince also the Czech political sphere and Czech society that we should decrease the pay gap and combat against violence. What I don't do is just fighting against discrimination. It doesn't work like that, because when I say it, it is a kind of taboo. Right. I have to speak about concrete problems where I have the figures, and it needs patience and also personal involvement and courage.
So let me touch, you mentioned in politics, having more women in politics and at higher level. Now the Commission, the Juncker Commission came up with an aim and a goal to increase the number of women in its institutions. So practice what you preach in a way. Last week we had a reshuffle of the different positions within the senior management in the Commission. And now we have, if I'm not mistaken, 36%. Up from 11% in 2014. Are you satisfied?
I am happy, but I am not satisfied. I am happy that we are progressing. I am not satisfied yet because we said the goal should be 40%. And I know that be it Günther Oettinger, who is responsible now for human resources, and before Kristalina Georgieva, they were both very determined in increasing this number of women in senior positions. And I think this is, if we achieve the goal, but already now 36–37%, it's not bad at all, we could serve as a role model for many other public institutions.
So do you believe in quotas?
I believe in fair competition. Because what we apply here is we have fair competition, and if there are two very comparable candidates having very similar or comparable education, experience, all the qualities, if we have a man and woman, that should be given the priority, the candidate who is underrepresented. It's usually a woman.
So basing it on merit.
Yes, yes. I strongly believe that gender itself is not a qualification, and it speaks against some kind of mechanic quota. And I can tell you, maybe it's my Czech origin that I am so careful about that. But I don't like this story that a highly qualified, fantastic, brilliant, educated man has to give priority to a woman. I don't like this concept. And I think that we women are strong enough to be able to compete fairly. I am a strong believer in this.
Especially the new generation.
Yes.
So you have another year and a half, roughly, until the end of the mandate. If you had a wish for a legacy, or which one would that be? What do you really would like to see by the end of the mandate, achieve by the end of the mandate on gender equality? I mean, obviously justice and consumer, but I'm looking at that aspect of your portfolio.
To choose one thing is to achieve the goal that the societies in our member states will not take violence against women as something normal and something which we tolerate. This is the mindset or cultural change, which is usually a long-distance run. But I believe that we can achieve it by ratification of Istanbul Convention, which I push hard on so that we have it in all the member states. And there is a lot of work for myself. I have to go to the countries and speak to the opponents and protesters against this Istanbul Convention, and to explain why this is an important piece of legislation, what are the desired results, and what are the myths and nonsense around that created suddenly in some member states. So technically speaking, the ratification of the Istanbul Convention is my big goal, and also to enlighten and to help the societies to understand better and to accept that violence against women and children is intolerable, unacceptable, and something which we have to combat all against.
Especially at a time where society is becoming, in a way,
harsher,
more harsher,
violence
more violent,
online.
Even verbal violence.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to have you with us. I hope we'll be able to have you next year before the end of the mandate. Thank you.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you very much.
Bye.